They don't understand what Donald Trump just said. He gave us a prophetic clue about Revelation chapter 6. He doesn't even know the fullness and the depth of what he said. But we are living in an age of deception. I just want to give a Christian perspective, a prophetic perspective to what we all just heard. Right? It was the most watched, maybe not everybody just heard and watched, but it was the most watched presidential debate ever in history. Maybe you can say it was the most watched debate ever in history. So very significant, and a lot of people heard it, but let me give you a prophetic view of what happened. I want to teach you the principle of the prophetic slip. It's found in the Gospel of John, the prophetic slip. Not a Freudian slip. Long before Sigmund Freud was born and invented that term, the Freudian slip, there is a prophetic slip. Here it is in John chapter 11. John 11, verse 49. And one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." Now this he did not say on his own authority, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. That's the nation of Israel. And not for that nation only, but also that he would gather together in one the children of God who were scattered abroad. Now when Caiaphas said this, he didn't know he was prophesying all that. This is called the prophetic slip principle. Caiaphas inadvertently spoke truth that he didn't realize simply because God acknowledged him as the high priest at that year, at that time. God honors leaders and will speak through leaders, even leaders that you don't like, even leaders that are plain unrighteous. Both Trump and Hillary made such prophetic slips, prophetic utterances during both presidential debates. And so I'm going to show you some of that in this video and in the next ones to come. Here's the first one. Trump said that Hillary Clinton wants a 500% increase in Muslim migration. And he said this is going to be the greatest Trojan horse of all time. Now the moment he said that, I said, whoa. He just said something extremely prophetic that enlightens our understanding of the book of Revelation. For those who don't understand the book of Revelation, God just used Trump's prophetic slip to explain something in Revelation 6. So what's the Trojan horse? Back during the Trojan War, after an unsuccessful 10-year siege on Troy, which is in present-day Turkey, the Greeks left a Trojan horse at the city gates and then pretended to sail off. The inscription on the horse read, "For their return home, the Greeks dedicate this offering to Athena," which was the female goddess of wisdom. Very interesting. You got the horse in Revelation 6, and then you got the female character in Revelation 17:18. We'll talk about the woman who rides the beast another time. But almost a direct parallel. You got the horse here in the most famous story about a horse in Western history, and then it's dedicated to the woman, the goddess of wisdom. Remember the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is what killed us. When nothing else worked to defeat Troy, a Trojan horse appealed to the people's pride, and they opened their gates and they let this horse come in. What happened next? The Trojan priest Laocoon warned, "Do not trust the horse, Trojans. I fear Greeks, even those bearing gifts." He was ignored. King Priam's daughter, Cassandra, was called the soothsayer of Troy. And she warned that the horse would be the downfall of the city and its royal family. Well, guess what the people did? Yep, they ignored her too. A Greek soldier, Sinon, was abandoned, quote unquote, abandoned with the Trojan horse, and his job was to convince the Greeks that it was a genuine gift to Athena and to light a beacon once the horse went inside the city gates. At night, while the Trojans were drunk, Odysseus and 29 elite commando soldiers exited the horse, and all the Greek ships turned around and invaded Troy and defeated it. King Priam was killed, Cassandra was raped, babies were dashed against the walls of Troy, and Troy, which could not be defeated in a direct head-on confrontation, was destroyed by one of the greatest deceptions of all time, the Trojan horse. This is undoubtedly the most famous horse in history. If you didn't know that, it is the most famous horse in history. And guess what? The writer of the book of Revelation would have known the story well. You know, the 7 churches of Revelation are all in Turkey. Yeah? And the Bible is written in Greek. And so there's a direct correlation that people who read the New Testament were supposed to have some basic, rudimentary understanding of Greek language, Greek culture, Greek history. Right? And if you want to understand the Old Testament, you have to understand Hebrew language, Hebrew culture, Hebrew history. Goes without saying. But there are 4 horses in the book of Revelation chapter 6. And I believe that these are 4 Trojan horses. What are they? They're false peace. The white horse is deceptive peace. The red horse, false flag wars and terrorism. The black horse, false economy, living on borrowed money, living on debt. The government taxing us through the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, printing money, rigged prices, rigged markets. This is a false economy. The green horse, false plagues, maybe through man-made viruses, GMOs, or just direct man killing man, which causes the martyrdoms that are recorded in the book of Revelation. Can we decipher what these 4 Trojan horses mean now? I laugh when people say that the white horse represents Jesus Christ. Well, Jesus doesn't come back to the earth at Revelation 6. He comes back in Revelation 19. And the fact that people can believe that is because they don't understand what Donald Trump just said. He gave us a prophetic clue about Revelation chapter 6. And maybe he's like Caiaphas. He doesn't even know the fullness and the depth of what he said. But we are living in an age of deception, of many Trojan horses, and the Bible highlights 4 of them. The white horse, I believe, may have appeared on the 9th of October, 2009, in Barack Obama, the white Trojan horse. Why? Because on that day, he, without any merit, without deserving it, was given the greatest symbol of peace, the Nobel Peace Prize. He, without any merit, without deserving it, was given the greatest symbol of peace, the Nobel Peace Prize. And since then, many people have died, and there's not been peace, there's been Middle East chaos, Arab Spring. The world is in turmoil. Clearly, a deceptive Nobel Peace Prize. The red horse may refer to ISIS. ISIS could be the red Trojan horse. Absolutely. Formed by America, funded by Saudi Arabia. The WikiLeaks email already confirms what we believed anyway, that America is not interested in destroying ISIS because Saudi Arabia is not interested in destroying ISIS. They want ISIS to destabilize the Shia countries and the Shia leaders, including Bashar al-Assad over in Syria. And so the Trojan horse is actually coming in through the mass undocumented Muslim migration into Europe and into America. Clearly a kind of Trojan horse. What about the globalist banking system? Could that be the black Trojan horse? The IMF wants every country in the world to be indebted to them, to borrow money from them. And countries like Libya and Syria would not. And look what's happening to those countries. The Federal Reserve, a private bank that is not really constitutional. It shouldn't be printing money by the trillions and putting America in debt. And yet it's doing that, which is a form of taxation that people don't even realize. When your money is going down in worth, it's a way that the government is taxing you. And then you've got all of these private banks that are in collusion with politicians. Politicians go from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan into political careers. It happens here. Our Prime Minister, I believe here, is used to be a JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs employee. Same with the Prime Minister in New Zealand. Often they come out of just these two private banks. How come? How can that be? How can two companies in the world produce so many presidents and prime ministers? Amazing. A false economy. And then the green horse, could that be the religion of peace? The quote-unquote religion of peace? The green Trojan religion of peace horse? Or could it be GMOs, the green Trojan horse? Man is mixing up good and evil, calling evil good, calling good evil, calling war peace, calling peace war. Amazing. Not even knowing how to call a baby life anymore. A baby, a fetus in a mother's womb is a person. The Bible says that God knew Jeremiah before he was even out of the womb. He had called him to be a prophet to the nations even before he was born. That means that he was fully human. We won't even call a human human anymore. What an amazing, ludicrous, upside-down world we live in. They just play with words and people believe words. You gotta think for yourself. You gotta think. You gotta question. The Trojans are coming. The Trojans are coming. Can you not see that? That's what Donald Trump is saying. You can see it. The Trojans are coming. And what happens when they arrive? There's lots of civil unrest, rioting. That's what's happening in Europe. And the Trojans are now inside the gates of Europe. And we predicted before this happened that terrorist attacks would be blamed. They would eventually find out that ISIS terrorists would come in as refugees, as asylum seekers. How do we know? Because the Bible predicts that the iron and the clay toes of the Roman Empire are not going to mix well, and they're going to start crumbling, and you're going to see Europe crumble. On the 14th of July, 2016, the truck terrorist that killed 84 people in Nice, France, guess what? He was an ISIS migrant. Headline: Mass immigration causes terror attacks across Europe. Blasts Hungarian politician. You know what? It's not just in Europe. Here's a headline from earlier this year. More than 30 immigrants admitted to the United States recently implicated in terrorism. Who is it that let the terrorists go from Guantanamo Bay? Who is it that wants a 500% increase of Muslim immigration, just Muslim immigration? Hillary Clinton, welcoming the Trojan horse. Is she doing it consciously? I don't know. But Donald Trump has called it the Trojan horse, and that is scriptural. That is more biblical than maybe he realizes. He has an advisory board of pastors. Maybe the pastors can tell him. The pastors can't tell him? Put me on the advisory board. I'll explain to you. I'll explain to the president what the Bible is saying about the end times. Donald Trump has been more presidential in these debates than Hillary Clinton because he's talking about issues that matter to the future of your country, to the future of your country, and to the well-being of the American people, and to the well-being of the American people. And he has said illegal, undocumented immigration is the greatest Trojan horse of all. What an amazing prophetic slip.